As long as you are not outed as a Nazi, it is easier to convince someone of Nazi beliefs than it is to convince them of socialist beliefs. This is true. Communism. You like the weekend? Thank a union for that. Thank some communists for that, okay? As someone who is a socialist in the United States of America, as someone who is a leftist in the United States of America, as someone who is a progressive in the United States of America, I eat it from every angle. I have for the past 6, 7, 8 years at this point. This is the only experience that I know. There has never been a moment in my political commentary career, where I have had broad support from every aspect, from every ideological group in this country. That's never happened. My position and your position is not popular. A lot of people might agree with our worldview, empathy first politics, but they don't have the tools to recognize that they agree with our empathy first politics. On an issue by issue basis, people might say, yeah, why don't we have fucking free healthcare? Oh yeah, I don't want my tax dollars to go into unlimited slaughter in the global south. Or they won't say that, but they'll say, like, I don't want my tax dollars to go killing like people overseas. I want them to, pave the roads and whatnot, right? But they don't understand that, like, the entire compilation, like the totality of those ideals actually point in the direction of socialism. Okay? Most people don't recognize that. My job is to try to get them to understand it. And of course, because this is a position that is not something that people know, this is not something that people understand. Socialism, the word is like spooky, scary, right? Either they don't know anything about it, or everything that they've learned about it is just like false and incredibly uncharitable. It makes it all the less likely and far more difficult to get this message to a broad audience. As I've said time and time again, being a leftist is a really annoying prospect. You're going to get yelled at by the far right. They're going to hate you. You're anti-fascist. They're fascist. They're going to despise you. They're fucking racist. You don't want that. They're going to hate you. They're going to dox you. They're going to swat you. They're going to try to kill you. Okay? They're going to try to smear you. They're going to try to cancel you. Liberals will also hate you because your positions make them look fraudulent. Okay? Your worldview will make them look utterly fraudulent in the eyes of a much larger audience. That's the reason why you have the Bernie Sanders effect. Democratic politicians despise him. Why do they despise him? Same with Zoran. Well, because they show the rest of the country that there is an alternative vision that you could be on board with. And that makes liberals really mad. Because then all of a sudden, they look bad. All of a sudden, people go and say, why don't you do this shit? Why don't you do the same thing that these guys are doing? Right? And then last but not least, every other person on the left fucking hates you as well. And that's because you might have a minor ideological difference or a different way of achieving ultimately the same goals. So you eat it from all ends. That is just how it's been. And the reality of the matter is, we don't do this because we want to be liked. Okay? Especially in my position, being liked is important only as it spreads the message across to an audience that will be charitable rather than uncharitable. This is precisely the reason why the past 6 years of endless smear campaigns of, shit getting clipped out of context and then all of the drama surrounding it has played a formative role in making a lot of people who would otherwise agree with my worldview be disagreeable because they don't approach anything that I'm saying in a charitable manner. That's why they never talk about the message. That's why they never talk about the policies. They just talk about the messenger. and how hypocritical the messenger is. Then they'll use the internal disagreements, that the healthy disagreements that leftists have with one another, as a way to say, see, his own audience fucking hates him. This is part of the reason why Jordan Peterson famously said that thing to Ethan Klein. It's not an easy position, but once again, it's not an easy position to be a leftist, but once again, you don't do it because you're going to get love from all of these different groups that you advocate for. You do it because it's right. Okay? That's it. That's why, in spite of the millions and millions and millions of different instances over the course of the past 6 years, or over the course of the past 12 years, okay, in spite of the reality that I have been yelled at from members of my own community who are like-minded individuals who think I'm not doing the right thing, as far as like making this a safe enough space for everybody, or liberals who say I fucked up the bag for them and I was antagonistic to their favorite politician and that's the reason why they lost, or the right-wingers who want to kill me. I've continued. My positions on the things that I've advocated for have not changed at all. There have been a million people that have come before this very moment that have said, Hasan is secretly a right-winger. One day you'll see. Many of those people have become right-wingers, ironically enough. You know, the Jimmy Dore contingency of people who were like, oh, dude, you are just a Democrat Party dick rider. Me, on the other hand, I hate the Democrats adequately and sufficiently. And then what happened? They now all vote for Republicans and defend the Republican Party. Okay? So, once again, not my first rodeo. It's all good. By the way, that wasn't even a diss on Bad Empanada either, for the record. I'm not comparing him to like someone who is ideologically rudderless or a grifter. I'm not saying that at all. I think he's honest. I think he's a little insane. But I think when he has a disagreement with someone, you know, he that's an honest disagreement. But if there's one policy, well, if there's two policies that I abide by, it's one is don't fucking punch left, especially when people are on board with the same causes you are, and this even includes Bad Empanada as well. Okay. No matter what he says. He says I'm a Zionist and everyone in my audience is a Zionist. Okay, fine. Sure. Who cares? That's number one. Number two. What? In WoW, there are passive factions with every members of every race, and those factions only attack you when you attack them. It's kind of like what I think the left is. Yeah. What the fuck was the other thing I was going to say? Jesus Christ. Number two. Number one, don't fucking left bash. Don't left punch. The left as a collective has no fucking meaningful power in the Western world. And ultimately, even if someone is like far more radical than myself, you won't catch me fucking shitting on them. I don't even talk about ACP that much. You know what I mean? And those guys fucking hate me. And I don't even talk about them. And there's plenty of disagreements there as well. They're like MAGA communists or whatever. But even then, I'm like, you know, who knows? Whatever. Number two, always maintain charitability and understand that people are at the mercy of social conditioning in general. I myself certainly am and certainly was. And so have many of you in this community. And that is precisely the reason why you have to always be charitable. That's it. Okay? So many morons eat this fucking shit up. Can't stand what these types of creators turn their communities into. Is DG of a different flavor? You cannot convince me otherwise. Yeah, I mean, I know. You mentioned this before. I just can't understand why you're so ready to go on Tucker Carlson's podcast. There's absolutely nothing you can gain from that. He's the most experienced media demon to ever live. He's the modern Joseph Goebbels. What's the point on going on that podcast? Tucker Carlson's podcast? Massive platform. I think you guys fail to understand. If I were to go on like Joe Rogan Experience, I wouldn't be platforming Joe Rogan and be the other way around. And same with Tucker Carlson as well. It's not even a real thing that's happening. It's a hypothetical anyway. You went on Piers before. He's a scumbag, but we're not mad about that. Yeah. And I said a lot of messed up things 2 years ago, but I think it should be clear that his opinion is chasing. Doesn't seem like a bad guy. Maybe he should apologize for some of that stuff, but it's not his view anymore. Yeah. I've also made it clear that if someone is saying it's a genocide, someone is talking about how we got to stop, we got to stop weapons, we got to stop aid to Israel, all this shit, okay? And more importantly, last but not least, are also not standing in opposition to others who have even more radical positions than they do, then that's fine. You know what I mean? We need people like that too. It's just it's always supposed to be a broad coalition. You're not going to have every single person come to the table with the same worldview that you have developed over the course of the past 22 months. Let's be real. There are plenty of fucking people that are in here right now that didn't have any of these opinions 22 months ago. Okay? Because once again, from the outside world's framework, from the outside world, I think that a lot of people see what we do here and they see the way people react to certain things, and they see themselves in the person that's getting yelled at. And I think if our goal is to be as open-minded and as like broad and create a movement that is as large as possible, which is a necessity for any sort of change, then, we have to be a little bit more careful, I think, of the way that we look. 100%. I feel like the chat needs to be like, this doesn't mean that like someone can just overnight be like, I'm a good person now, and then everyone should just like eat that shit up. That's not what I'm saying either. I think, you should remember what people's positions were in the moments when it was necessary for them to also push. You are too charitable with your haters, I swear. It's because I have been a leftist for many, many years publicly. And in that time frame, I saw a community that I developed grow into the size that it did. And therefore, I am forever grateful for what I've been able to accomplish in that time frame. And that I know this position that I'm in is far better than my starting point. That's number one. Number two, I'm charitable to every single person, including my fucking haters, always, because I believe that I can change their perspective. Number three, especially if someone is on the same wavelength in general, especially if someone is on the same wavelength, someone like Bad Empanada, who I am in agreement with in terms of anti-Zionism, but we have maybe different methods. I don't really give a shit if he farms me too much. It's just a nuisance. It's annoying because like people, because of our collaborations and whatnot, and because of our ideological similarities, there's going to be a lot of people that watch both of us that will come in here and be fucking annoying. But ultimately, it doesn't matter because those guys are still going out and fucking protesting. You know what I mean? And as long as they're doing that, I'm happy with it. As long as there's not like an active demand to deplatform someone like myself, then it's fine. Bad Input on a platform, you too. I think you're a bit hypocritical. I like you a lot, but you'll constantly say I'm not a journalist, but constantly try to be one. And when people criticize you for doing poor journalism, you use the fact that you say you're not a journalist as a crutch. I think you just already admitted that you recognize that I'm not a journalist and that at no point have I actually said I was a journalist. You think I'm trying to be a journalist when I have conversations with people, when I never am trying to be a journalist. You literally just got mad because of perceived hypocrisy that that comes along with something that I never said I was, that you think I'm actually trying to do. That's the issue. You've said you do journalism. Yes. The times where I do quote unquote things of journalistic value, in spite of not being a journalist, is talking to someone who is like in Gaza, for example. Okay. Talking to someone or going out to a protest and filming the protest from the perspective of the protesters, or, you know, things that happen to me that have broader consequences for society, or a conversation with like Mahmoud Khalil, or going out and interviewing the firefighters, the California prisoner firefighters that are combating wildfires. Like, those are things that have journalistic value. That's not all I do. That's not most of what I do. That's just me. That's just what I do, having the function of journalism. Okay? But I don't say I'm a journalist. I say I'm a political commentator. You know, I play basketball. I'm not a basketball player. You're obviously an engineer. Yeah. That part is true. I am an engineer. Yeah. I'm a political engineer. I've been doing political engineering for years. Look, there's going to be a million different opinions and a million different voices. Many of them are going to be contentious. I talk about politics. Politics is always going to be a contentious subject. A lot of people either A, treat it like it's fucking drama and love the back and forth that takes place in that regard, or B, understandably play it close to their chest. And so when they hear something that they might have misunderstood or didn't fully comprehend or completely disagree with, outright disagree with, all of a sudden this is like a world-shaking event. It's a world-breaking event for themselves. Like, oh, this content creator who this guy who I thought, you know, had my best interest in mind, I disagree with him on this one thing. Whether it's because I might have misunderstood it or because I just have a vehement disagreement on this issue, this is really fucked up. Someone on Twitter said it was like platforming Nick Fuentes. Yes, that's just baby leftist rage, okay? Don't worry about it. It is what it is. Again, look, I'll give you an example. If you're a trans person, for example, I'm sure there's been heated moments here where you feel like I wasn't entirely in line with something that you believe, or I maybe said something that you considered to be transphobic and you got mad, but you're still in here because ultimately you got over it because you recognize that I'm not an enemy to who you are as a person, and I am an advocate for your well-being. Right? That's just one example. And especially as it pertains to this issue, for you've never said anything transphobic to me. No, but some people think it, and it is what it is, you know. In any case, as far as like platforming Nick Fuentes goes, I don't think a lot of people understand how fucking popular that piece of shit is on TikTok. I've said this over and over again. Part of that is because leftists eat it from every fucking angle. So even if they were right all along, they already are so fucking stamped out from public discourse that someone on the right that is more elevated, more platformed by other vestiges of the right can then carve themselves out a new platform. Nick Fuentes has been deplatformed a million times over, you know, because back in the day, they used to do that to Nazis. Okay? That's what they used to do. That was what it was. Obviously, things have changed. The other part of the problem is that I think Americans and Westerners broadly are way more susceptible to the anti-Semitic framework, the anti-Semitic anti-Israel position that like Jews are doing hypnosis to Americans and shit like that, than they are to listening to a materialist analysis and this complex relationship that has created so much harm and destabilization. That shit is boring. It's lame. It's academic. It's much easier to be like, Jews are doing this and they're dominating your lives. Jews did woke culture. Jews did this. Jews did that. Americans are far more susceptible to conspiratorial thinking, partially because materialist analysis is the exact antidote to conspiratorial thinking. And yet materialist analysis has been shut out in this country. No one ever fucking thinks in this kind of way. And as a matter of fact, when you start thinking in this kind of way, or you start doing advocacy and you say, hey, this is my worldview, a lot of people turn around and say, you're a fucking demon. You're a socialist. Fuck you. You're a rich socialist, actually. You're a poor socialist. You're actually jealous of the wealthy. You're a rich socialist. You're actually hypocritical. That's really dangerous. And that's what it is. When you shut off materialist analysis and dialectical materialism, historical materialism, as a alternative form of analyzing why certain kinds of events have unfolded and why certain things happen, when you shut that off and you say, that's actually scary talk, that's socialism talk, that's a real threat, then the other side that still is capable of existing within the confines of liberalism, which is, fascist thought, gets to thrive when there is a big divergence between what the population is seeing and what the population is saying and what they're demanding versus what the politicians are doing. Israel's a perfect example of this. This is something that I've warned about over and over and over again. And yet, nobody listens to my fucking warnings ever. So it is what it is. Even in this country, a country that fought Nazis in World War II, okay, especially after the Cold War, it is easier to convince someone of Nazi sentiment as long as you are not outed as a Nazi, and even that is changing seemingly in this day and age, okay? As long as you are not outed as a Nazi, it is easier to convince someone of Nazi beliefs than it is to convince them of socialist beliefs. This is true. One example I will use that is kind of a sad state of affairs that kind of plays a role in this is look no further than Destiny, Sex Pestiny, who has spent every waking moment in the last 7 years at this point actively coming after marginal left figures, people like myself, with endless sequences of harassment, ridiculous smear campaigns, all this stuff. And it hasn't really been successful for his own career necessarily, but it has been successful in, I think, undermining the broader reception of the left by a larger audience that already wasn't going to be super charitable to the left anyway. And in that process, I think, instead of converting a lot of these right-wingers and Nazis into liberals who vote for the Democratic Party, I think he ends up pushing them to the maximalist position of anti-communism and anti-socialism, which is always going to be Nazism and fascism. And the greatest example of this is, of course, his son. Streamer Destiny's son, Nathan Bonnell, tweets, "Hitler is a hero," while praising Nazi Germany. The Nazis were protecting the West by invading Poland. The Reich was a blockade against the USSR and the rest of Europe. They took up all responsibilities of the failing Polish government, and they stated this explicitly multiple times. Hitler is a hero, he said. This kid is 14, I think. I don't know how old he is. Okay, this is Destiny's son. He's been on the internet since he was a baby. And worse, he's been on Destiny's Discord since he was a baby. Okay? And of course, when you pair that up with just being a shitty deadbeat father who is way more invested in creating a cyber stalking sex cult, who routinely will align with neo-Nazis, tries to fuck prominent white nationalists and white supremacists like Lauren Southern, and you create a community of people who are from all of those different ideological backgrounds, and then you put your 7-year-old, 8-year-old son into that community, this is going to be the outcome. This is the outcome of someone who is extremely, extremely online. It's an incredibly sad state of affairs. That's it. It's probably a cry for help. It's probably a way to try and get attention from his father. It's really, really sad. He said it's because you and his dad kicked him out of your Discord. He's obviously isolated and it's kind of sad. He was in my Discord? Why the fuck was he in my Discord? Yeah, we don't let anybody under the age of 18 in the fucking Discord. What is it? What kind of stupid shit is this? Yeah. What the fuck? He mentioned me? He knows who I am? That is crazy. I guess his dad is psychotically obsessed with everything that I do. So, but yeah, my point is, this is another prominent example. This is another primary example of like when you actively design your worldview, as many people have, around attacking the left, attacking socialism, attacking communism, you end up pushing people who are in the periphery to seek out answers. And conspiratorial thinking works within the confines of liberalism so perfectly. And there's the grand conspiracy almost always. The grandest of all conspiracies almost always is Jews. Jews are the ones who are responsible for everything that's going on in society. That's why Nazi sentiment is so successful. Liberalism plays a formative role in Nazism continuing to grow as a movement. It is not an accident that after World War II, I guess the historic battle between communism, the historic battle between communism and capitalism, socialism and capitalism, led to the destruction of socialist movements of the Western world and the end of the USSR, and inevitably created an environment post 80s, 90s, where left unchecked, capitalism created or accelerated the contradictions that is now collapsing the system that we have designed. And fascism is thriving once again. And that's where we're at. It'll take some time, I think, for people to recognize that the solution to growing fascist movements is not liberalism, but instead anti-fascism. So, Gorbachev and Pizza Hut, yeah, I mean, he fucking, a lot of the USSR leadership got one-shotted from the bounties of unlimited commodities that they saw, where they were like, this is the greatest. I love treats, which is why I've been an advocate for treat economy, and have long stated that I have no issue with luxury commodities or treats necessarily. I think it's an important tool to keep people satisfied. Anyway, I was raised alt-right and conservative. You've been a big part of my education and transformation to the correct side of history. I know it's discouraging, but keep going. You're making a difference. Yeah. The loudest and most powerful voices in this community are not in Twitch chat. They're outside of protests at the DSA convention, advocating for PSL, working for Zoran and other campaigns. Yeah, exactly. They're labor organizers. They're people that work in the movement. They're not people chirping on Twitter. I think people chirping on Twitter, people chirping in the Discord. Let's be real. If you're doing that, then you're not busying yourself enough with real work. That's it. But it also doesn't matter. Again, because this kind of back and forth will always happen. There will always be people that yell. There'll always be people that get mad. It is what it is. But like I said, I think because the left is utterly powerless in this country, I see no reason to endlessly go back and forth on the minutia. You know? Just continue to be charitable, I guess.